Every day, we bring you a new series of true crime videos. Today, let's head back to 1940s Los Angeles and look at the infamous Black Dahlia murder and what might have been her last day alive. It was a dark and stormy night in 1940s Los Angeles. The year before, 1946, had been one of the wettest on record for Southern California, and it looked like 1947 was going to be more of the same. Rain lashed against the windows of the small bungalow on South Kenmore Avenue. Inside, the room was dimly lit by a single lamp casting long shadows on the walls. On the bed lay a sleeping woman, her face partially covered by a curtain. She stirred slightly, then opened her eyes and sat up. Her name was Elizabeth Short, and she was about to start what would be her last day alive. She got out of bed and walked over to the window. Outside, the rain had let up and a faint glimmer of sunshine was starting to break through the clouds. She smiled to herself. Maybe today would be the day that everything changed for her. Maybe today she would get that big break that she had been looking for. She turned away from the window and started rummaging through her closet. She pulled out a dress, a blue one with white polka dots, and put it on. Then she did her makeup and put on some lipstick. As she looked at herself in the mirror, she knew that she looked beautiful. And with that, she left the house and headed out onto the street. Walking down the middle of the street, Elizabeth Short made her way to the corner store where she bought a pack of cigarettes for her father, who was waiting in the car. It was during this time that she most likely crossed paths with one of the many men who would be involved in her death. But of course, at the time, she didn't know that. She continued on her way until she reached the car and handed the cigarettes over to her father. They drove off, unaware that this was the last time they would ever see each other. Later that morning, Elizabeth got off the bus and walked toward the nearest payphone. She needed to call Central Casting, the office that helped her find small acting gigs. She wanted to see if there were any auditions happening that day. A casting agent answered the phone and told her there wasn't anything scheduled, but to try back tomorrow. Disappointed, she hung up the phone and walked away. Elizabeth had come to Hollywood to become a star. She had moved around a lot during her life and lived in many different cities. She had been married twice and divorced once. Her second husband had been abusive and she had filed for divorce. After getting a divorce from him, she moved to Hollywood, where she believed she could start a new life and become a famous actress. However, since arriving in Hollywood, things hadn't really worked out for her. She had only been able to get bit parts in movies and TV shows. She had been passed over for so many roles that she was starting to think maybe she should go back home. But she knew that she couldn't do that. She had always been honest with her family and didn't want to disappoint them by admitting she had failed at her dream. So instead, she kept trying out for parts and working odd jobs to make ends meet. As she walked down the street, she passed a newsstand and saw a copy of Confidential. On the cover was a photo of her. The headline read, "Blonde in the Black Dahlia Case." She picked up the magazine and flipped it open to her story. It was all about her and the strange circumstances surrounding the case. She had been one of the prime suspects, but the police had let her go without charging her with a crime. She had never been told why she was a suspect, but she suspected it was because she had been seen arguing with Short the night she disappeared. Still, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride when she read the article. At least someone was talking about her, even if it wasn't in a positive light. But even though she was no longer a suspect in the case, she knew that the police were still looking for her. She had received anonymous letters threatening her life and had even seen detectives following her around town. She didn't know why they wanted her dead, but she was scared and just wanted to disappear. With that, she continued on her way until she came across a bar. She walked in and sat down on a stool. She ordered a beer and drank it quickly. She was just about to order another one when she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned around and saw a man standing behind her. He was tall and handsome with dark hair and piercing blue eyes. "You're Elizabeth Short, aren't you?" he asked her. Yes, I am. Who wants to know? I'm a reporter from the Daily Mirror. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions about the Black Dahlia case? No, not at all, she said, thinking that maybe this would finally put all these rumors to rest. They talked for a while, and the reporter told her that he was writing an article about the case for the newspaper. He asked her about her relationship with Short and what she knew about the murder. She told him everything she knew, and then he asked her if she would be willing to pose for a picture for the newspaper. She agreed, and the two went outside. The reporter took out a camera and snapped a few pictures of her. After the pictures were taken, the reporter thanked her for her time and told her that he would see her around. She watched him walk away and then continued on her way. A little while later, she spotted a group of teenagers and walked toward them. She had always loved being around young people and enjoyed their company. She started talking to them, and they seemed to like her. One of the boys asked her if she would take a picture with him and his friends. She agreed, and the group walked over to a nearby drugstore. The owner of the store allowed them to use his camera, and Elizabeth posed for a few pictures with the group. After taking the pictures, the teenagers thanked her and went on their way. She watched them leave and then went back to walking. At this point, Elizabeth had been walking around all day and was starting to get tired. She wanted to find somewhere she could rest her feet and maybe have a cup of coffee. She walked into a hotel lobby and sat down on a chair. The bellhop came over and offered to get her a drink. She declined and told him that she was just resting her feet for a moment. She sat there for a while, watching people walk by outside. When she felt rested, she stood up and walked away. Later that evening, Elizabeth found a payphone and called her mother. They chatted for a while, and her mother told her how much she missed her. They said their goodbyes, and Elizabeth hung up the phone. As the night wore on, Elizabeth started to feel tired and hungry. She walked into a restaurant and sat down at a table. She ordered a burger and a cup of coffee and ate quickly. When she was finished, she paid her bill and walked away. She continued to walk around the city for hours, not knowing that she was being followed by a man in a black sedan. Finally, at around 3 a.m., she spotted a park and walked inside. She sat down on a bench and closed her eyes. She had no idea that she would never open them again. As the sun started to rise, the man in the sedan drove by. He stopped and got out of the car. He walked over to Elizabeth and checked to see if she was still there. When he saw that she was, he called over his shoulder, got her, then he walked away. And that's where we end this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Be sure to check out our other videos. We have a ton of videos about the Black Dahlia murder, so be sure to check those out if you haven't already. We also have a podcast that we just released an episode on the Black Dahlia murder, so be sure to check that out as well. We'll see you next time.